Youth are tomorrow's leaders. That's what we often hear. But young people around the world are already changing the status quo, whether it's reviving traditional sectors like agriculture, or venturing into new ones like tech, or even going into the arts, education, or government. Let's meet some of these young go-getters now. Welcome to Trade Compass, the International Trade Center's video news program. We're in Lusaka, Zambia in southern Africa at the tail end of the 2018 World Export Development Forum, where young leaders took center stage to share their vision for a world without borders and to share how the African Continental Free Trade Area can scale up trade. Here's a recap.
The government needs to be in touch with reality. 80% of jobs in Zambia and across the world are from small-scale entrepreneurs. So if you do not give them the support that they need, then what are you doing?
There have been times when you try to register a company and the website is down. If it's online, make sure it works.
Communicate the vision, communicate, talk to everybody. If you're a young person and you're doing business.
Challenges that exist in my industry are intellectual property. I can release an album today and I'll find it in the streets, sold back to me, not the original copy. I would love to travel to another country and know that my copyrights are being protected there as well.
Things like champagne, Bordeaux wine, they're protected based on their geographical origin. And I think that our countries, we have a lot of things that we can eventually protect under such a system.
One of the jokes that most of my traders have is there's government policy and there's the police policy. The government will say the border is open, but the guard at who's supposed to allow you in through the border has his own policy. And we should be serious about this. We shouldn't just pay it lip service.
Même si c'était des pays très proches, qui légalement, je veux dire, au niveau de la réglementation, sont aussi très proches, sur le terrain, ça ne se passe pas comme ça.
The CFTA will help generate a combined consumer and business spending of $6.7 trillion by 2030. So Africa really needs it, and the world is watching.
Agriculture in Africa is the key to growth. To scale up, we need to move from subsistence farming by elderly populations to commercial agribusiness led by young people. Let's hear more.
Are we starting it? You're on camera. Okay, let's you're on camera. All right. Everybody wants to be on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media. Everybody wants to travel. Everybody wants to have some sort of disposable income to buy the things or do the things that we find to be attractive in the 21st century as young people. And usually those things are not associated with farmers, unfortunately.
Young people, they don't necessarily want to be associated with being farmers, but they love the idea of being agripreneurs. So we have a big effort called Enable Youth, where we actually take young graduates and we teach them everything that they need to know in terms of drawing up a business plan, hiring people, how do you think about being connected to suppliers, the whole shebang for about 6 months. And then with those who have the best ideas, even providing some seed funding. As long as we do put into place the right policies, we do provide some of the trade facilitation, we build the right infrastructure, and we provide the financing, I'm very convinced that this next generation that's coming in, we can really count on them.
I studied international development and economics, and during my studies realized that business has a major role to play in the developmental transformation of Africa. In Gambia, we don't have gold, oil, or all these other natural resources. What do we have? We have a lot of mangoes. The perception in Gambia is agriculture or farming is something that your grandparents did or your old people do. And what we're trying to prove is that this shouldn't be the norm. Agriculture could be a middle income activity, and you can be young, you can be cool, you can be trendy and be in agriculture. Apart from being cool, you also have to be very serious. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to pay attention to detail and work very, very hard, and that should be also seen as cool.
The arts is another area where Africa has great potential in global markets. There's still scope for rising young artists to grow. One challenge they face is intellectual property.
You can imagine a Hollywood movie being released and you are able to access it for free. Hundreds of millions may have gone into the production of this thing. and there needs to be a return on investment. But if the copyright or the access to it is not controlled or not protected, it ceases to become business.
I mobilized a team that goes into the marketplaces and basically sees if there are any bootleg CDs that are there, and they would go with the police and confiscate any bootleg CDs. Now the issue is that that's at my cost. I need to basically pick up the police officer, mobilize the guys who are going to move it around, and we needed to do weekly sweeps. So as an entrepreneur, my focus shouldn't be on protecting my own intellectual property. It should be that the policies and the law is to do that. We can eventually establish an industry by mobilizing ourselves. And I mean, if let's say we ask a guy to start up a company and we say, okay, we're all going to give this guy a percentage of each CD to protect our material, that means that he could start a company that does that across. It doesn't need to be under the government powers. So unfortunately, we're not enough of us who are doing that. So that's what I'm trying to work on now, to mobilize the artists to say, like, guys, we need to look out for ourselves.
It's not only about protecting what's in Africa, but investing in its people. Here we take a look at a young social entrepreneur from Ghana who's doing just that. He's investing in science, technology, engineering, and maths in the classrooms and beyond.
Let me introduce you to Mr. Charles Ofori from Dext Technologies. Here is his pitch about to start. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Good afternoon. From the phones that we use to our cars and our roads, engineers and scientists weave the fabric of development. But Africa is behind. The UN says that for Africa to be able to have enough scientists and engineers, we need 45% of our students to go into science and engineering. Currently, only 12% does, because there's simply no labs and material to train these. This is the problem we try to find a solution for. And we asked a really daring question, that is it possible to put a science lab on the desk of a student? And the answer to this question was yes. We created the science set. The science set contains over 45 individual components and materials for a wide variety of activities. All of this is small enough to fit on a desk of a student, and it's as affordable as a textbook. Currently, more than 11,000 students in 200 classrooms across Africa have already performed more than 20,000 activities using the science set. How do we make money? We sell the science set at a 40% profit margin to parents, governments, organizations, and institutions. We are not the only ones doing something like the science set. However, we are unique because we are portable, affordable, and adaptable enough to be integrated into almost any classroom on the continent. The team behind the science set is really solid. Myself, my co-founder, as well as 8 other energetic young people, including our board of directors, such as the lady who is the Director of Science, Technology and Innovation at Ghana's Ministry of Science and Technology. We continue to develop the science set further. This is a microscope that could cost as little as $2. We are about into the science set. The BBC recently, in an article on the science set, said it could be the tool that will bring about the next generation of African innovators. My dad was a science teacher for over 20 years, and in that time, the only thing he had was a bottle that he used to measure rainfall. And today, students in even the remote parts of Ghana and South Africa are building their first digital logic gates using the science set. And I'm telling you that a day is coming that every student, whether they're in a farming community in the Gambia or here in Lusaka, Zambia, will have a science set on their desks. The world better prepare for Africa and its innovators of tomorrow. Thank you.
In the end, it's all about partnerships between business and government. Meet a young trade minister from Botswana who is changing the face of policy with innovative ideas.
We need to engage more young people through the platforms where you find young people. So we need to do more in the social media space. We need to do more in the entrepreneurship circles.
You mentioned social media. You yourself are young.
Yes.
You're cool. How can we use social media to bring about that change?
Well, there are several ways we can do that. One is always sharing the information, sharing what it takes, what exists in the pipeline from being a startup to reaching the market. Just sharing that information, but also having tweet meets. Having Facebook live sessions where you can interact with your constituents, especially those that you wouldn't ordinarily meet.
We need to ask, for youth who are women, they look at you and say, how do I become like that?
Right.
How?
How? That's a difficult question. How? Take chances. Take risks, especially when you're young. You have a lot of youthful, both ignorance and arrogance, and you have a lot of capacity to take risks. One of my most favorite things to do that also terrifies me is feeling like I am walking inside the mouth of a lion and holding it wide open while I take whatever is mine. So a challenge can be so exciting. It's terrifying. It's terrifying for a reason. And if it terrifies you, it means so much to you. So it is worth all the risks and worth just going all in.
That's all for now. We hope this edition of Trade Compass has helped you to see young people for who they are, and not just for their age, and to take their ideas and solutions into account into building a world without borders. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Pompi, take us out.
Words that you speak, they never die with you. You when you leave, they move, they breathe. The message gonna live on through these kids. I know the power of the tongue. I need to be careful with every song I sing. Been saved by the blood and grace of my King. When the fame and the glory fades, He will remain. Nimu pasani mendo, munione se moendela. Nimu pasani manja, munione se mokwilila.